Hello everyone, thanks for coming down. My name's Andy, I'm with CCVH, I'm the outreach coordinator. And unfortunately our sound system it's asleep right now, so you're gonna have to kind of gather close if you want to hear us. I'm glad you're all joining us here today, the media here, joining us as well as we're gonna be unveiling our land use ordinance today. It's been in the works for a long time, and we're glad to finally be able to bring it out and share it with you all here. And I'm also, if I can note, glad to see all the green I'm a farmer and I heart farmer shirts. So we have 3 speakers for you today, and I'd first like to introduce Richard Marks, our executive director. He's going to take it up here and project as well. So, Richard Marks, executive director of CCVH.
Well, I'll project as best as I can. I'm just so happy that everybody could be here on a really beautiful day in Humboldt County. A little bit windy, but hey, it's just to be expected. I am Richard Marks, and I am the executive director for California Cannabis Voice Humboldt, or CCVH, as we would like to say. This is a very exciting day for us, but not just for us, but for the small farmers and for all of Humboldt County. This is a day which Humboldt takes a huge step into the future. Not a future predetermined by outsiders, not a future given to us, not a future we just happen upon. No, a future we are making ourselves and by ourselves. Thank you. CCVH is about the future. CCVH is about moving forward. CCVH is about Humboldt County and protecting the heritage of Humboldt County. CCVH is about farmers. Yes, CCVH is about farmers. But not just farmers, daughters of farmers, sons of farmers, grandchildren of farmers. Just like you, we want the Humboldt County we pass on to our children to be a better Humboldt County. There are still some people out there that think that things are just fine in Humboldt. There are some that think that status quo has been working in Humboldt. There are some that prefer just to live in the past. That's fine. We're not here to drag anybody into the future, but we're here to, with you, create a new future, a future that works. This is Humboldt County Cannabis Cultivation Compliance Land Use Ordinance. Represents a year of hard work, but it's not work we've done alone. We couldn't. We had our help throughout this process, and now we need some help from you down the road. We will touch on that later. We had a tremendous help from environmental consultants, county agencies, state agencies, elected officials, and local farmers crafting this ordinance. Former Humboldt County Supervisor and Coastal Commission Chair Bonnie Neely and the Nossman Group have been invaluable, lending their expertise to this endeavor. Through all of this, and behind all the experts, planners, and attorneys, has been a grassroots movement of the cannabis community in itself. This community has come to the table, has come out of the shadows, has come into the light, and said it's time to move forward. And to be honest with you, it hasn't been easy, and it hasn't been without tremendous risk, but it hasn't been in vain. People have listened. Our local media has listened. The San Francisco Chronicle has listened. The LA Times has listened. Our supervisors have listened. Our assembly member has listened. Our state senator listened. Our U.S. representative in Washington has listened. Our future governor, current lieutenant governor, has listened. If you don't think they all could tell which way the wind is blowing, then they wouldn't have been listening to Humboldt County like they have. When in the history of Humboldt County have you had the assemblyman, congressman, and lieutenant governor all in Humboldt at the same time? I can safely say never. And it was all until about a month ago. Do you know why they came to Humboldt? To listen, to learn, and from who? That's right, the cannabis community. Woo! That same community has been forced to live in the shadow for decades now. It is the same community driving change and protecting the heritage of Humboldt County. Never doubt that is a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. When change comes from the community and from the bottom up, the top will listen. thank you for being here for this historical event.
Thanks, Richard. Again, our executive director. Next up, I'd like to introduce, we've got some members from our policy team who, as I like to joke, have been working not only longer and harder, but way cheaper than I've been working and getting paid for. So first up, I'd like to introduce one of our co-founders, our board member and member of the policy team, Luke Bruner.
People of Humboldt, today is a great victory for this community, and today represents the future life of our people and our land. The cannabis community has united and has come together to push forward the greater good. What we present to you and what we offer with friendship and with open arms and open hearts is an opportunity to begin regulating the greatest unregulated industry on planet Earth. Today is the day that California Cannabis Voice Humboldt came into existence for, so that the grassroots and the people of this county could have their everyday voice heard and allow prosperity to come for decades upon decades. Around the world, countries go into bankruptcy. Puerto Rico slides into insolvency. Cities and counties around California teeter on the brink. But the future of Humboldt is bright because the farmers and the people are organized. The ordinance that we give to you today is a labor of love and the works of our hands and our hearts. And it does three things. We have fulfilled the promises we made to you in October and November, that we would raise the money, we would raise the time, we would raise the human capital for the industry to take responsibility, to make right the wrongs of the past, and deliver on three promises. That there would be a method for agricultural certification. Cannabis is an agricultural farm product, and we're farmers. That the greatest form of legitimacy that the county government is able to provide to us would indeed be provided, along with strict regulations. That we will have a clear pathway to obtain business licenses just like everyone else. And finally, we lay out in this ordinance, which has gone live on our website as we've stood here, the strictest environmental protections that we can find possible to create, requiring everyone that wants to farm cannabis legally for medical purposes to get their state water board paperwork in order, to register with Fish and Wildlife, to ensure their grading is correct, and to have a written agreement with CAL FIRE, and to get a seller's permit with the Board of Equalization. It's time to pay our taxes. What we present to you is an unfinished product. We come to you in a spirit of unity and openness, and as we did from the beginning, we ask for your help. We cannot do this alone. On July 7th, we will address the Board of Supervisors, and we will lay out a 45-day schedule for public meetings and public comment and public feedback so you can provide verbally and in writing what is needed to make this the right fit for Humboldt County and hopefully serve as a template for the rest of rural California. Times have been hard. People have been hurting financially. There's no insurance. There's no crop insurance. People are scared. Women are scared. We have issues of domestic violence. We have issues of environmental degradation. But we own those issues and we own the crisis. We are here to participate, to have a seat at the table, to be participants in the public process, and in good faith to go forward in unity together. We've seen bad things. We've all seen the newspapers. We've seen what goes on public lands. Trespass grows on timberlands. And as Assemblyman Jim Wood and State Senator Mike McGuire have said, people that want to do the right thing but don't know how. The future for us to go forward and to do the right thing is through a process of regulation and taxation so that the environmental damage stops immediately. Not tomorrow, today. California Cannabis Voice Humboldt claims now to represent over 1,000 farmers in this community. We regularly turn out hundreds of people at the Mattole Grange, in Willow Creek, at parades, and at festivals. People have stepped out, and in the words of Harvey Milk, come out, come out, come out. Farmers of Humboldt, you have nothing to lose but your chains and your shame. And the grassroots have indeed empowered the grass tops. We have our local supervisors who we are dedicated to working hand in hand with, who have the wisdom and the knowledge and the leadership to help this community come up with the right solution for everybody, especially Supervisors Estelle Fennell and Ryan Sundberg, who've been working on the committee. State Senator Mike McGuire and Assemblyman Jim Wood, they've both come here. They've brought people here with them. They're sponsoring legislation in Sacramento. And both of them stood on the floor of the Senate and the Assembly and said the farmers that want to do the right thing and pay their taxes and have health care, those are our constituents. The Board of Equalization, Senator George Runner and Fiona Maw have come here with their teams to tour farms and to help farmers get a pathway to taxation and legitimacy. In addition, Congressman Huffman has taken ownership of this issue, invited the Lieutenant Governor to come visit, and he too toured a good and respectable, environmentally friendly farm. And he said something that's taken to heart by all of us. If we don't work to write it with them, people are going to write us out. And we're here to write it with the community today. Finally, a special point of praise and credit and honor goes to three of the hardest working people in this community. Sheriff Mike Downey, Under Sheriff Billy Hansel, and District Attorney Maggie Fleming. They have an impossible job. They don't have a clear book of rules to play from, just like the farmers. And if they said repeatedly, they need clear guidelines, and there has to be clear regulation so we can tell the good guys from the bad guys, the green dots from the red dots. And in a spirit of openness, we say to them today, we're here to work with you hand in hand. There's one thing left for the farmers of Humboldt County to do. One thing to take ownership of your grassroots empowerment. And it's time for the farmers to register to vote. Thank you so much for coming out today. None of this would have been possible without the ongoing and constant dedication of dozens of people behind the scenes that have opened doors for us, had constant communication with us, have allowed us access to experts, have allowed us direct channels to wisdom and guidance. What we have produced is a community effort, and what we hope to see to come to fruition is what will be one of the great triumphs in North Coast history. Thank you very much.
Again, Luke Bruner of CCVH. And here it was at the beginning. I was worried about us not having amplification, but much like the farmers of Humboldt County, the voices are actually a lot louder than you might expect. So next person, I'd like to bring up another member of our board and policy team, but before I do that, so you guys know, especially the press, we're going to open things up for a couple questions after Patrick speaks, and then when we're done, you're welcome to approach us individually and we'll chat a little bit longer as well. So again, if you don't mind, Patrick Murphy from our policy, he's on our policy team and board member. Get ready, this guy does not need any microphones.
How you doing, Humboldt? I'm really glad that everybody showed up here today. This is a historical event. We're moving forward. The practices of the past have not worked. Humboldt County is the global heart and soul of the cannabis industry. but it is also the brain and the intellectual property. So it makes perfect sense that the answers on how to regulate this industry would come from Humboldt County. We want to make sure the goal of this has been to form a partnership, and although it's an unlikely one, it's an absolutely necessary one. Farmers cannot do this alone. We need to form a partnership between cannabis farmers, law enforcement, environmentalists, business leaders, our elected officials, and county and state agencies. This hasn't happened here in Humboldt before, which is why moving forward we have the ability to make history. We need all of these people to make sure that when people talk about Humboldt cannabis, they attach those words with salmon safe cannabis. Our brand is the environment. In Colorado and in Washington, they are building factories. Here in Humboldt County, we want to build a strong network of middle-class farms that are environmentally responsible. We're going to try hard to keep doing that. This ordinance that we're releasing today is a template. This is going to be released for constructive criticism from our community. Meetings will be had throughout the rest of this month. These meetings will be with CAL FIRE, Fish and Wildlife, the Regional Water Board, also our local agencies, the Building and Planning Department, Environmental Health. We will take that constructive criticism. We will also be holding meetings with environmentalists who are our friends and our partners in this. I want to thank the people behind me. I am used to, like most of the people in the crowd, for being overworked and underpaid. I don't think there's a lot of people who are used to being overworked with no pay. These people behind me have stood up, have sacrificed their relationships, their jobs, because they believe that this is a critical issue for Humboldt County going forward. When you have an industry that is surviving and thriving in the county, it is that industry's responsibility to make sure that the people in this county, even if they have nothing to do with the cannabis industry, are surviving and thriving alongside with it. In this county, we've had a couple of industries come through, and because they didn't want to regulate, they are no longer here. When they left, the job stability went with them. This is an action to create the very first industry in Humboldt County's history that is both environmentally and economically sustainable. In 10 years, we will either be proud of what we built or we will be ashamed that we did not stand forward and create this industry. I want to also thank Sheriff Downey, Maggie Fleming, and Under Sheriff Bill Hansel. I would not describe them as progressive. What I would describe them as is pragmatic. There is a problem here. We need to solve this problem together, and we will not be able to do it. This was written so that in 6 months, when the state level guidance comes down on the legalization of medical marijuana, that law enforcement will no longer be in a gray area alongside the rest of us. There's a lot of anxiety amongst our farmers about moving forward, and there's a lot of anxiety from law enforcement about moving forward. The best days of the cannabis industry and of Humboldt County as a whole are yet to come. There is nothing to fear about legalization. My name's Patrick Murphy, and I have really been happy to stand forward, not to stay behind my gate, and I have been really proud to serve with this group of people, and I really appreciate all those who have come before us, EGA, HumMaps, the different groups, the individuals who have come before us in working towards this goal. I want to finish off with the fact that thanking the Back to the Landers. They came here a long time ago, and how we proceed will either honor or dishonor the sacrifices that they have made over the last 50 years that include loss of life, loss of families separated by incarceration. I want to make sure that we honor the people who came here, who created this community, and I want to make sure that as we go forward, we make them proud. Thank you.
Again, Patrick Murphy. I got to try and speak as loud as he does now. So we have a couple minutes for questions, and then again, you're welcome to come chat with us. We have a table up here with some of our literature. We have copies of the ordinance out here as well, and you can see our website right down here just launched, and that has access for a digital copy of the ordinance. We'd love for you to check out as well, and there's a place there to submit comments, which we're going to be keeping track of. Written comments, you can mail them in, you can email us. We want to keep track of those for the next 45 days as we open this up to everybody to get their voice in. So now I think we got time for about 5 questions. Is there anybody that has a question they'd like to address to one of us?
Hi, I'm Harry Jasper. I serve as the CEO at the hospital in Southern Humboldt Community Healthcare District. I want to first definitely recognize the courage that it takes to take a position on such a publicly, I would say, fragile tightrope to walk. I also want to thank those for the invitation of community leaders and organizations that are in desperate need of bringing together our resources for the good of our community, our local school district, our chambers of commerce, our community parks, the services that Southern Humboldt and all of Humboldt are very proud of who we are. It's an honor to work with each of you as you unify a voice around our community, which is in many ways centered around the cannabis as a part of our history. So my question is on what is your desire, as well as what are you presently doing or hope to do in working together with organizations such as the medical community, as well as the school district. And I'd like to also offer our services to work together on this legislation. Our emergency room personnel are seeing also the front lines of what we experience as our economy becomes one of tourism and recognition of what we're proud of. When we recruit physicians at our hospital, we recruit around the values of health, the environment, of community, of small towns. It's the rural town that we live in. And so I want to first say that I congratulate you on the efforts, the work that you've done, and also give our support for that and ask the question, are there areas around medical cannabis, working with our schools, that those within our communities can get behind and support you on?
Thank you. Thanks, Eric. Andre, Luke?
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. I know they see a lot of farm work related injuries down in Southern Humboldt, people with injuries because of equipment or scissors and stuff like that. I think we'd welcome the opportunity to present to the elected board in Southern Humboldt about this and coordinate with both you and some of the hospitals and other folks up here about how the medical community can really take leadership for this. Humboldt County should be the center of medical cannabis research globally.
Got time for another question? No, not Hank. I'm just kidding.
So Mr. Murphy, you spoke of creating a sustainable, economically and environmentally sustainable business economy going forward, an industry going forward. But I don't think it's any secret to date, since the back of the Landers time, the economic value of your product has been based largely on prohibition, which is going to come to an end. And as it has been coming to an end slowly since Prop 215, we see the ecological impacts of the industry on the land grow ever more. So how do you plan to keep those sustained and in balance going forward when, without prohibition, the price falls?
So most of the damage surrounding the cannabis industry as a whole are the lack of those 3 permits that we talked about. And those are 3 permits that are absolutely needed no matter what business you would be developing. And that's CAL FIRE, Fish and Wildlife, and the Regional Water Board. So if a farmer has those 3 permits, that addresses the taking of trees, grading. It also addresses from Fish and Wildlife's perspective, taking water in the wintertime when we're water rich and using that water for our agricultural commodity when we are water poor in the summertime. And then finally, the Regional Water Board discusses discharge into waterways. So by addressing those 3 issues, it's very possible that we can create an industry that is salmon safe, that is environmentally sustainable. As far as the price, everywhere where they have made this legal, the price went up. In Colorado, the price went up. And here in Humboldt County, we are not going to focus on producing the most average cannabis that we can. We are going to focus on producing the finest cannabis in the world. Just like Humboldt grass-fed beef, which spends more money to give you a better product, Humboldt cannabis farmers are going to spend more on permits and their environmental compliance to make sure that the product that you have is not only safe for human consumption, but is created with care and love, not just for the plant, not just for your personal sake, but for the environment and the community around it. I don't fear prices dropping whatsoever. It's very possible that we could create 10,000 jobs in this county that were growers that were paying taxes on $150,000 to $200,000. That is our numbers that the Obama administration would be proud of. They are surely numbers that Humboldt County should be proud of.
Up front here, sure.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Not much has been said about the specifics of what's in this newest draft, and up to this point, it's been controversial. And the two items that come to mind are the growing area sizes and what's been described as a lack of environmental controls in your draft ordinance. Does this newest draft address those concerns? And can you talk about what's in the draft a little bit?
Sure. Yep. What's Patrick again?
Yeah, we can do that. So people have asked us, why have you left out two parts, environmental protections and the revenue needed for the enforcement? It's because those are the two hardest aspects of this whole entire thing to figure out, and that's why it took a long time to figure those two issues out. As far as the environmental protections, I can tell you that what we are proposing is higher environmental protections than any other agricultural commodity in the state of California. As far as the square footage, as far as canopy size, at the top level of this, so we have addressed patient access, because that is an absolutely important part of this. Patients should not have to pay in order to grow their own medicine. That is our bottom tier. From the next tier, it's a cottage industry, and that cottage industry is subject to the same regulations. As you would go higher, it tops out at a 1/4 acre. Nothing can be done a 1/4 acre or larger without a conditional use permit. So the county will decide if there are grows larger than that. There is no other agricultural commodity in the state of California that says you can only grow a 1/4 acre of tomatoes. You can only grow a 1/4 acre of vineyards. We're talking about on properties 160 acres. The only amount of production area would be a 1/4 acre. We know that with correct storage of rainwater, permitted rainwater catchments built, that you can harvest enough rain, even in a year like this year, to supply the water for that 1/4 acre. And that's the largest. So attach that to the fact that we are looking at a tax system which would stay here, an excise tax that would stay here in Humboldt County, so that the next time somebody smelled cannabis, they would know that that's the smell of schools being built, that's the smell of roads being paved, that's the smell of local prosperity, and it has been done with great reverence to the environment around us.
It's tough to follow that guy up. To add on that, let's take a look at what our future does involve. Currently the latest proposals down in Sacramento, allow for grows 30,000 feet and larger. It may be after a next round of amendments, they might cap it at an acre. They might decide the sky's the limit. That's why people like Senator McGuire are down there advocating for cannabis appellation zones. Just like Napa is a brand, and the Alexander Valley and the Russian River are brands, Southern Humboldt and Willow Creek and all the 36 and all these other different areas in the county, they're all going to be specific brands. This is a small farm, niche, connoisseur product. This isn't the $2 chuck. The $2 chuck comes from other places. What we produce is the best in the world, and tourists are going to want to come see it.
We got time for a couple more if there's anybody with questions. Anybody? Ryan?
So the current draft I saw calls for cannabis production to be principally permitted in timber production zones. And I know timber production zones specifically get tax benefits designed to encourage responsible timber production. Can you address how this would fit into that framework?
Yeah, so it's important to remember that agriculture is a principally permitted use of TPZ. We didn't write that. That was in the land use description of TPZ. So TPZ, when it is strictly being used for timber production zone, you're right, there are tax breaks that are involved. The second that a 3-acre conversion, which allows you to convert 3 acres of 160 acres, these are the same rules that apply to everybody else. The second that you do that and you start building a homestead on it or making improvements, the tax assessor charges you for those improvements. So there are TPZ pieces of land out there, homesteads, that are paying $8,000 in taxes this year. And so the tax cuts are not relevant when they are assessing the total value of the property. There's nobody getting away with a homestead with a nice place that their property hasn't been assessed. I can very clearly tell you that there are TPZ properties out there that are paying quite a lot in property taxes every single year.
And so we have time for about one more, but then, of course, after this, feel free to come and approach us and we can talk to you individually, of course. And again, we have copies of the ordinance on the table and other literature should you want it. Anybody want to do the cleanup question? It's a lot of pressure.
I'll do another if no one else has one.
Oh, there's one.
Do you mind if I jump back?
Go ahead.
Sorry to...
Go ahead, no problem.
I think we're keeping this to reporters right
Oh, sorry.
How do we address the banking issues?
Feel free to chat with us after this. Sorry, we got one more time for a press question or somebody that has a fancy hat on or something. Okay, well then, thanks again for coming out, everybody. We really appreciate it. And stick around, and again, you can come talk to me, and I'll point you to somebody who knows what they're talking about. And we want to answer your questions. So thanks again for getting in I didn't think we were going to have sunshine today. Should have worn like a little hat back here. So thanks again, and for coming out and being part of the community. As we're all on the same team, and as we've said before, we're all in it together. So thank you very much.
Thank you to all.
So I'm Andre Carey. I'm the president of the California Cannabis Voice Humboldt. We're here today to release our draft ordinance for cannabis cultivation in 5-acre or larger parcels in the county. I would say that I'm most proud with this board that we were able to give something to the Board of Supervisors that maybe would work as some sort of a guideline for cultivators as well as law enforcement. We've worked with a number of different agencies throughout the state and county. And we're just very proud that we were able to release this today.
I'm incredibly excited about this ordinance. What stands out most to me about this ordinance is it provides a clear pathway to legitimacy for farmers that want to do the right thing, but they don't know how. It gives a king's highway to come in from the cold, make things right, and get a provisional license so that you can have the sort of farm that you can be proud of. People aren't going to have to go to their school board meetings anymore and lie about what they do. They get to be family members, they get to be friends, they get to be part of the community. And we're coupling that with the best environmental protection that we could come up with. This is head and shoulders above the environmental protection that the rest of California has to follow. You have to get your fish and wildlife in order, you have to have it together with the State Water Board, you have to have it together with CAL FIRE, and you have to have a seller's permit from the Board of Equalization. This is the sort of ordinance that can pave the way for decades of prosperity to come.
CCVH has put a lot of work into it, listened to a lot of people, and now we have 45 days to figure out if our board staff can take a look at it and decide, if it'll work for Humboldt County and make changes to it if we need to. One of the big things in it is that the Humboldt County Board of Supervisors can make changes to the ordinance in the future. Most voter-gathered ordinances that are passed by the voters usually don't let anybody make changes to them, so whatever you get is what you get. And some of the best parts about the ordinance, they put a limit on how big the farms can be, and you have to have conditional use permits, So and then also the really small farms, they don't really have to have a whole lot, so encourages patient access, and then also deals with the bigger farms that need certain protections. And they've also worked really hard with all the state agencies, between Fish and Wildlife and the Water Quality Control Board. And so I think once someone is fully permitted, they're not going to be environmentally harmful. The water issues that we have around here are going to be solved, and they can hire people. They'll pay taxes. That'll be huge for the county. We're in a $3 million deficit this year, and so any income coming in is we can do a lot more for our community with it. So one of the reasons that I've been in favor of this is I've lived in Humboldt County my whole life. I've never moved from where I'm at now, and cannabis has always been here. Everybody that's lived here long enough knows people that grow and knows people who smoke, and it's just not trying to enforce it out of existence is just not worked. And I think we're at a point now where it's just let's see how we can make it better. And so that's where the ordinance comes into place, and where state and federal laws need to change. And our board is realizes that this has to move forward. And so I think in the future, I could see cannabis tourism, permitted farms, taxes. Hopefully we won't have a deficit anymore. I've seen numbers of more than $50 million that could raise in taxes. So it could be huge for the county and change everything around here.
And I like what I heard today. I like that this is open for input from other segments of the community. I like that it's a grassroots effort, and so I like that it's not the finished product, because I think it does need some work. Well, I think that cannabis has obviously become a part of Humboldt County at this time. It's really pretty much entrenched, and it's very much a part of the economy to one degree or another. So now as we move forward, the big question is, will it continue to be if legalization happens? I think from the county's perspective, we want to make sure that when legalization does happen, whether it's done by the legislature or by initiative, as everybody is saying will happen in 2016, that there be a place in it for the kind of marijuana growing that we would see viable in Humboldt County. In other words, I personally don't really believe that we should be in the position of attracting large industrial marijuana grows to Humboldt County. I think that would be very detrimental. So we have to find a way to codify and regulate this that makes it possible for people to if they are growing marijuana, do so in an environmentally sound way, protect the environment, and so that's what I'm. And the question's been out there for a long time. What would happen if marijuana is legalized? Will Humboldt County just fall away, or will Humboldt County benefit from that? And the argument has been made that the way that Humboldt County would benefit from that is by using branding, appellation as people call it, and that's something that, I've been more and more convinced that it's probably the way that it would work. Humboldt County, what we're interested in is making sure that the environment is protected and that anything that happens is in concert with the carrying capacity of the land. But I'm concerned that there are no real limits on there yet, and I think there should be. There's also concerns about the costs of staffing, how it would be implemented at a county level, and several other concerns that don't come immediately to mind, but certainly that's why I say I like what I heard, because I think that it does need work, and that work can be done both at this level, where you're getting input from various people, and then as we move forward, if it comes before us, with input from all the departments and agencies that would be tasked with actually carrying it out. then they'll have 45 days. I think they'll be gathering signatures and gathering input. And they will bring it back to us at that point, and they will ask for our support. At that point, you know, it depends on what the final draft looks like, whether or not we can support it. I imagine that we will be asking for the ability to make changes to it and have input on it if we're going to support it. So I see basically that this could be folded into the county efforts if the county wants to move forward. And remember, we are looking at moving forward with an ordinance, so this could be part of that, or it could go off on its own and be voted on. So at this point, there isn't a process yet for the public to give input on a county ordinance, so they should contact CCVH and give their opinions there. And of course, if anybody has any thoughts on it, and I know a lot of people do, they can contact me at any time, and then I would really appreciate that. They can go to the county website and get a hold of me, because myself and Supervisor Sundberg are on the ad hoc committee, and we will be the ones who will be looking at an ordinance to go forward.